Okay. Let's zero in on Lincoln, Nebraska, and Matt Rhule and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Okay. Because that's where this story comes from today, where we have a bit of a war of words between the Big Ten and the Big 12. Matt Rhule took a shot at the Big 12, and he's honestly not wrong. Okay. What Nebraska's head coach said about the Big 12 is not entirely wrong, but he still looks like a total fool for saying it. Okay, that's the distinction here that we need to make sure that we break down. So Matt Rhule has a press conference, okay? And how does this come up? Why is he taking this shot? Where does this come from? It does come from a place where, like, I understand how he gets a little bit frustrated in his response. So he gets a question at the press conference about local recruiting in the state of Nebraska. And I think the idea here is some may feel he's dragging his feet too much on offering in-state prospects, whereas back in the day, I mean, Nebraska certainly throughout the course of time has been big on at least the walk-on program in the state. That's limited a bit now by the 105 scholarship limit. And people are saying, like, hey, why are we not adding more Nebraska kids, especially when, here's one of the key foils in this story, Iowa State has been recruiting Nebraska like crazy. So whereas Matt Rhule has been dragging his feet on sending out some offers, Iowa State has not. They've been coming in hot and heavy and trying to load up on prep prospects from the state of Nebraska. So much so that the Omaha World Herald wrote a column about it. There was a big article about this, and it's a part of where I saw the quote. So I'm going to start reading to you from this article to kind of set this up and give you an idea of how Iowa State really got under Nebraska's skin in all of this. But it says, in a year when the Husker football program has extended just 3 scholarship offers to 2026 in-state prospects, Iowa State has commits from 5 seniors to be and could land as many as 9. So Nebraska's only offered 3. Iowa State's already got 5 committed from the state, and they could get as many as 9. One of these prospects said, quote, they said this is their Nebraska year. So Iowa State staffers are saying this is their Nebraska year. We're going all in on the state of Nebraska because we love so many of these prep prospects here. All right. Quote, Iowa State is one of those out there where it's very clear they're building a program. Elkhorn North Coach Sam Stanley said, it's very clear to me they're putting a premium on high school kids. Well, I will stop and say something about that. That is very much accurate. It's clearly how Matt Campbell has been building this program. It's a smart way to program build in general, but especially if you're a school that will not be fishing at the high end of the transfer portal every single year, right? You're going to sprinkle in some guys, but if you are in Iowa State, you are probably not going to be dropping in $2 million plus guys in the transfer portal every single year, for instance, right? So in his first 3 recruiting classes at Nebraska, Matt Rhule signed more than 20 in-state prospects to scholarships, including 6 in 2025. So not only is he behind Iowa State, he's behind the pace that he was on earlier on in his Nebraska coaching career. They point out that Scott Frost only signed 16 in-state prospects during his entire time at Nebraska, so he was not bothering with much of this. Matt Rhule decided to make it a priority. Now it seems to be slipping. Now it seems like Iowa State is encroaching on this territory. That's why this has become a deal, something to ask about for Nebraska media, and why Nebraska fans are now concerned about this. Okay. So that helps explain some of the backstory here as to how we get to this comment and where Matt Rhule is probably feeling a little bit of, I don't know if like pressure is the right word, but just maybe perturbed and annoyance, I would imagine, at this point, where he's saying, okay, we've got this school coming in here, and now I'm having to answer all these questions, and people are questioning how I want to do this, how I want to evaluate in-state kids. He would go on to talk about how it's like he wants them to come camp first. He wants to see them in person first. Can't just be throwing out offers. And a part of that is because he doesn't want to be throwing out a bunch of uncommittable offers, which is something that you see a lot of out there. All right, so the article continues. Nevertheless, when directly asked about in-state recruiting on Thursday, Rhule said he won't make scholarship offers without being sure that a prospect fits the Huskers. Rhule prefers potential recruits both attend practice to see how Nebraska's staff really coaches and compete at summer camp before he makes the offers. Okay, yeah, so here was this part. Quote, there's lots of kids I would love to recruit if they're committed to a Big 12 school or somewhere else like that. All right, let me pause and set this up. This is the quote, okay? got a little bit ahead of myself. This is the quote from Rhule. All right. Quote, there's lots of kids I would love to recruit. If they're committed to a Big 12 school or somewhere else like that, come to camp. If you want to play in the Big 12 over the Big 10, I got it. But make no mistake, there's a big difference. Okay, so Rhule is basically saying here, look, I am at a Big 10 school. I have to be more discerning with the talent that I select. So I can't be handing out scholarships all willy-nilly like a lowly Big 12 school could, because they don't have to have players that are as good as I do. That's what's happening here. And so he's saying, hey, you want to go play in the Big 12 over the Big 10? Fine, whatever. But there's a big difference. Okay, that's the comment. And Rhule knew right away that he had said something that was going to make, well, probably shows like this, right, make the headlines around the Big 12 circuit, because he said, quote, the Big 12 is going to go nuts now, referencing fans upset on social media over the comments. But he doubled down. So as you probably would not be shocked to learn here, Rhule is going to double down on the comments and said, quote, it's the reality. He said, using his right hand to indicate how the Big 10 and SEC were stronger than the rest of the conferences. The Big 10 and SEC, especially moving forward, are going to be here in terms of everybody else. Okay. So he's motioning how far up, how far ahead the Big 10 and the SEC are going to be from everybody else in college football. All right. Now, if you have watched this channel long enough, you know, obviously, yes, I do support the Big 12. I stick up for the Big 12. I defend it as much as I can because nobody else out there is going to. However, I'm not completely naive. There have been many times here on this channel, I will freely admit, like, yes, obviously, life is a little bit different in the Big 10 or the SEC, where there is much more money coming in, particularly from the TV contracts. And yes, at the top of the sport, you have all of the concentrated powers at the top of the sport. My argument many a time has been, okay, let's talk about the conference as a whole and the depth of talent. But at the top of the SEC and Big 10, for sure, yeah, they've got the best teams in the sport. No one is denying that. So yes, in that regard, it is different in the SEC or the Big 10. Okay. And if this were, I don't know, Dan Lanning, Oregon head coach, if this were Ryan Day, defending national champion head coach Ryan Day, saying this about the Big 10 and the SEC, that'd be one thing. If this were Kirby Smart, national champion head coach at Georgia, that would be one thing. But this is Matt Rhule, okay? And I respect Matt Rhule. He did a great job at Baylor. He may be onto something at Nebraska, although that fizzled a little bit last year. But the problem here is the messenger. It's all about the messenger here, because the ball's on Matt Rhule to be the guy to deliver that message in that scenario. Okay? Matt Rhule is 12-13 overall as the head coach of Nebraska. In this Big 10, he is 12-13. And in fact, in the Big 10, he's 6-12. Okay? He has lost twice as many Big 10 games as he has won. Nebraska scraped together a 6-6 season last year, or else they would still have the longest bowl-less streak in Power 5 football, Power 4 football. They had the longest bowl-less streak in Power 4 football up until last year. Went like 8 years without a bowl game. Like, it's not just Rhule as the messenger. It's him being the head coach of Nebraska as the messenger. Like, you are, in many ways, at the least accomplished Power 4 school over the last 8 years in college football. That's a hell of a thing for you to be throwing out there. Man, well, life is just so much different for me in the Big 10. We can't possibly be recruiting kids that the Big 12 is recruiting. Nebraska hasn't won more than 7 games in a full decade. It's been a decade since Nebraska has won 7 games in a season, more than 7 games in a season. They have not finished the season ranked since before the playoff existed. That was in 2012, the last time Nebraska as a program finished the season ranked. All right? I mean, take all those numbers, think about that, internalize that. Now let's come back and think about how that compares with a school in the Big 12 like an Iowa State, which has been to 2 Big 12 championship games in the Matt Campbell era. All right, in this same era where Nebraska didn't go to a bowl game, twice Matt Campbell played for a Big 12 championship, which in this new world that we're in means he twice played for or would have been playing for the right to go to the college football playoff. So if we're talking about here recruiting and pulling in a kid who's thinking, I want to play in the college football playoff, because ultimately that's what Rhule is saying here, right? Like, come to the Big Ten, come to the SEC, you'll play in the playoff. It's big time football. It's not like the Big 12. If you're going to Iowa State, you have an objectively better chance to play in the college football playoff right now than you do going to Nebraska. Period. End of sentence. You want to go to the place where, okay, cool, they're in the Big Ten, but they haven't won more than 7 games in a decade? Or do you want to go to a place where they just won 11 games, played for a conference championship, which means they were literally 1 game away from being in the playoff? And oh, by the way, the Big 12 champion last year was 1 play away from beating the SEC runner-up in the playoff. So even winning a game, getting to the semis of the college football playoff looks more attainable there than it does slumming it around at Nebraska, where you're picking up table scraps and trying to get to the Fenway Wasabi Bowl. I'm sorry, Matt Rhule, but messenger is the problem here. Both you and that polo that you're wearing make you look pretty foolish with saying this. It boils down to this. This was the analogy I came up with, like this attitude that Rhule is wielding with this quote. Would you rather go stand outside the most popular nightclub in the country? I'll say, I don't know these things, but like Club Live that you hear about in Miami, would you rather go stand outside there, wait in line all night, not get in, but okay, you got to take your Instagram pic in front of the building so you could show people like, hey, I'm here. I'm at the cool club. I'm here, but you didn't actually go in and you spent your entire night waiting outside in line? Or would you rather just go to whatever club is popular in your hometown, actually get in, have reasonably priced drinks, and have a good time with your friends throughout the entire night? And oh, by the way, maybe you'll still get the girl at the end of the night too, right? You still have that opportunity. Whereas if you're just standing outside like a bum, but you're at the cool spot, like that's the analogy here. Okay, Nebraska, yeah, you're at Club Live. You're not getting in. You're barely getting in line. You're not going to bowl games. I mean, that's the analogy. And people are starting to get this, right? I'll talk more about this later. Josh Hoover got offered $1 million+ more to go to Tennessee than what he was making at TCU. He stayed at TCU. And that's Tennessee. Tennessee's actually accomplished something. They've peed a couple of drops recently, unlike Nebraska. I thought the best capper on this entire discussion is these 2 quotes from Tyrell Chapman. Okay, so Tyrell Chapman is a safety from Lincoln North, who I think sums this up perfectly. So in-state kid, right? This is an in-state kid. Everybody, I'm sure, wants him to go play for the Huskers. This is what he said. Quote, Nebraska is a little bit all over the place at the moment. Nebraska is a little bit all over the place at the moment. That's what he said about Nebraska. Here's what he said about Iowa State. Quote, they're on a great path. Nebraska kid says Nebraska's a little all over the place. Iowa State's on a great path. And it's hard to argue with that. And it's hard to argue which one of those paths is going to get you closer to the college football playoff when you go pick your destination. All right. So Matt Rhule, kindly shove it and let's move on and stop embarrassing yourself in front of the microphone.